Start the recording. Okay, so we are now recording. Welcome again this afternoon. I am Erica Narducci. I'm the program director of Cancer Support Community Delaware. If you're new to us, just a quick overview. Cancer Support Community Delaware has been here for more than 25 years. We provide support to cancer patients and their caregivers at no cost throughout the state of Delaware and even a little beyond. Our support is done through support groups, both weekly and monthly and even bi-monthly. We do healthy lifestyle classes to help reduce stress for both patients and caregivers. And then also we do educational programs. And that's what this is today, a little bit of education, important things for us to know as we're going through a cancer journey ourselves or if our loved ones are. So it is my pleasure today to introduce to you Nicole Fulmer. She's the Executive Director of Honoring Choices Delaware and the Director of Community Engagement at Delaware Hospice. Nicole pours her passion for helping people on their grief journeys in her role at Honoring Choices Delaware and at Delaware Hospice. Since she lost her husband at a young age, which you'll hear more about today, she has worked tirelessly to connect people to the resources needed for healing and moving forward. She champions the vision of Honoring Choices Delaware to power a cultural transformation that normalizes end-of-life conversations so people feel empowered to make choices reflecting their values and beliefs. Nicole enjoys spending time at the beach and the Poconos with her 3 children. And so she is a busy lady, and we thank you for spending some of your time with us today, Nicole. So I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Apparently I'm in a horror film too, because my screen is doing some very crazy things. So I apologize. Yeah, it's very pixelated and funny and I can't really understand. So I'm going to actually stop my video. I usually like to leave it on, but thank you so very much for the introduction. And by a thumbs up, can everybody see the screen that says get your ducks in a row? That's okay. Most people see it. All right. So I'm going to go through this presentation, and if you have any questions, feel free to shout it out, put it in the chat, raise your hand, and I'll try to answer as soon as I can, or if you want to save them to the end, that's fine as well. And some of the information that I'm going to provide or talk about, I'm going to send an email afterward, if there's anything you want, such as links to some websites. All right, so we'll dive in, and I am going to say in a couple minutes, you're probably going to hear my dog bark because my kids are going to be coming home from school. So hopefully that won't be too long. All right, let's get started. So you heard a little bit about me, and because I draw on a lot of things with my family and the stories, throughout the presentation, I'd like to show you some pictures. I'll tell you a little bit about me. So 3 kids, a dog, a cat, a chameleon, a toad, 3 leopard geckos, and most recently a bearded dragon. I have a zoo. My husband, Will, my soulmate, the love of my life, my best friend. He has passed away, but you see him there in the bottom right-hand corner. I call myself a peaceful warrior. I have a peaceful heart, but I have the spirit of a warrior. It was also a great movie. Nick Nolte was in it many, many years ago. Yes, I am crazy too. I'm a fire walker. I'm addicted to it. And yes, that was an 8-foot bed of hot coals I walk over. I'm just kooky, but I like adventure. And I basically am in my dream job with Delaware Hospice and also Honoring Choices Delaware because my husband died. I know that sounds strange, but I will be explaining because, sometimes we don't understand why things happen, but usually we find out why a little bit later. So what we're going to do today, just talk a little bit first about what matters most, because I think that is so important to really think about before we start on what's called an advance directive or a living will. Some people just pull out the paperwork and they fill it out. But honestly, I think it's better if we talk about what matters most to us first. And then after you do this document, How do you tell other people about it? How do you tell your doctor? So we'll talk about that. And then what I like to call a wrap up and resources. So we'll get right started with what matters most. As a culture, we plan for everything: birthday parties, graduations, trips to Disney, weddings, retirement. We plan. We're a society that loves to look forward to things and plan. But what we really don't think about and what we don't plan for is what's going to happen to everybody, what our final wishes are. What do we want? What don't we want? And sometimes, we put that on the back burner. So I ask people, like when we're in person, I like to do like a little bit of an activity and engaging and see, just by a show of hands, like what matters most to you. It could be family, children, grandchildren, pets, friends, your church, maybe you're a veteran, but think about those, what is it that means the most to you, that makes your heart swell with happiness? And generally, I see or hear rather these themes: family, friends, and pets, love for God, country, and then this idea of peace. And I love saying that word peace. It brings something special, some energy into the room. And that helps lead us into what I call a roadmap for peace of mind, body, and heart. So peace of mind. When you think of this towards like the end of your life, it can be very overwhelming, but gathering some of that information for family members so they know about the finances, legal documentations, medical information, all those passwords we have. These are important things that we often don't think about. Your Facebook account. Peace for your body. This is where we're primarily going to focus on today, about the advance directive, making sure people who matter most to you understand what your wishes are so that they can honor what you want with dignity and respect. And if you've already done an advance directive, high five, good job. And even if you have done it, you can go back and update it. So you might learn one or two things here in the presentation that could be helpful. And this final one, I love this picture: peace for your heart. And this quote: at the moment of death, the only thing that really matters is the condition of your heart. Just so pretty. So we're going to talk about this roadmap of peace and helping to guide us in our conversation about advanced directives. And this is the quick and dirty 101 version. Remember those books that were out? I think they still might be out, like Advanced Directives for Dummies. Not that we're dummies, but I like those books. So for me, I think the best way to explain this is, something that I learned when I was in, I think maybe second or third grade. We'd have to cut out newspaper clippings. Remember when we used to get the paper and we'd have to go in front of the class and say the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And so I think that's a really good way to explain an advance directive. So we'll talk about these parts and we'll start with what it is. And then talk about who should have one, why you should even do it, when you should do it, and how. So this is a picture on the right side of the Delaware Advanced Health Directive. Every state has a different version. I wish ours looked a little nicer and was a little bit easier to understand, but we can't have everything in life. So this is what we have right now for Delaware. And I can send this link out to everybody following, or actually I can just send it over to the cancer support community and we'll get it out that way. So what is an advance directive? It's also known as a living will. So you may hear that expression, but basically it's a document and it outlines what you want, what your goals, your values are, your preferences for what you want, and sometimes more importantly, what you don't want at the end of life. And the other part that is so important is that it allows you to name someone or a couple of people who would be able to know your wishes and speak for you if in the event you are not able to speak for yourself. Now, this surprises a lot of people. I think I heard a car door. I think the dog's going to start barking. This surprises a lot of people. When you're 18 years old, you can do an advance directive. You're legally an adult, and it can be modified at any point in your life. And that's really important to know, because sometimes people think, oh, this is it. What I have is going to be it forever. Well, no, because he's now 22. What my 22-year-old son, when he went to college, I made him do this. I got an eye roll for sure, let me tell you. What he thinks about what he wants now versus when he's my age in his 50s, and then, in his 70s and 80s, it's going to change. Your health changes, everything changes throughout life. So I like to tell people, think about updating it. It's the 5Ds. So maybe every 10 years, when you get into your 90s, you might want to do it maybe every 2 or 3. If you've been diagnosed with something. I know when my parents both had cancer 3 times. And when they had cancer, each additional time, things changed for them about what they wanted and really what they didn't. Divorce. Well, this is a funny one. I was giving this presentation once, and a woman came in and she was sitting in the front row and knitting. And she said, I already have my advance directive. I already know everything. And I said, well, why don't you just enjoy, the refreshments and, make, just more than welcome to stay. And I got to this slide and she let out this huge gasp. And I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, oh my God, my ex-husband's listed. He'll kill me for sure. And it just cracked me up. So, I do say that if you do get a divorce, you may want to appoint another person. If the person you have said you have appointed has died, obviously you want to change it. And I put destination on here, and this has been funny during COVID because a lot of us really didn't travel. But sometimes people like to put things in order when they're going out of the country. I can't explain it. It's like you cross the ocean and all of a sudden, your outlook on life changes. But if you're going to Oklahoma, nobody really cares. All right. So this question I get so often, why? Why do I even need to do this, Nicole? And I say it's a gift. It's a gift for those people that you love, because there's this huge burden. If you don't know what somebody really wants, that's a lot of pressure on you. And if you have down what you want, the chances that, they're going to do CPR or they don't do CPR, whichever you choose, there's really good chances that'll be honored. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of people do their advanced directives because they wanted to be more in control of their life. That was something they thought they could control. For example, we had people who wanted ventilators. Well, then during COVID, if you remember in the early days, we didn't have enough ventilators. People were calling me and saying, can I change my advanced directive? I want to give somebody younger a ventilator if they have a better chance to live. And honestly, dying is part of life. It's hard to accept at times, but we really do need to think of it and we need to plan for it. Now I'm going to read this because it's a little difficult to see. It comes from one of my favorite books, The Hospice Doctor's Widow. So this woman was married to a doctor, a hospice doctor for years, and then he ended up needing hospice and passed away. And the way she coped was by taking quotes, letters that he had written, and pictures, and made these beautiful collages. And this one reads, we'll spend years and tens of thousands of dollars planning a wedding. Only half of marriages last, but we won't spend any time talking about our end of life wishes. And we know that lasts. Very powerful. So talking about marriage, that brings me to my husband, Will. Love this guy to pieces. This was taken a month after we adopted Allison and Tristan. They're biological brother and sister. They're from Camden, New Jersey. And that's Antonio. He's the 22-year-old. So this was obviously taken many years ago when I was a lot skinnier. And I like this picture a lot because of that, both of these. But this is my family. And life was great. Life was wonderful. It was crazy and chaotic, but it was amazing. And then one day, November 12th, 2015, I got a call from my husband's boss, and he had said that there was an accident and that I needed to get to the Westchester Hospital as soon as possible. When I arrived, I was taken back into a little white room and told that my husband had had a massive heart attack and died. He was 43, totally out of the blue. Well, my world was rocked to the core, and I needed to figure out how to live, what to say to my children. He had no life insurance. How were we going to survive? And so I was very blessed. Friends who were acquaintances became my very best friends. It's a group of us, actually, we call ourselves the Misfits. We basically started to come together after my husband died, and we are friends to the end. What was surprising, though, was my in-laws, who had always just been wonderful to me and to our children. But very quickly, they turned and they blamed me for his death. They didn't know he was an organ donor. They didn't want to have his funeral in 3 days. They wanted it in 3 months. And I was floored. And I said, I'm his wife. I'm the mother of his children. I'm planning his funeral for next week. It's Thanksgiving and Christmas is coming and we need closure. And they said, well, there's nothing written. You've only known him 13 years. We've known him his whole life. How dare you? Now, I knew what my husband wanted. I knew that he didn't want to be put in a vase. I knew he wanted to be cremated. I knew he was an organ donor, and I knew he did not want his corneas given to anyone for whatever reason I'll never know. Now, if my husband had had an advance directive, if he had written any of this down, it would have been much different. But instead, my grandchildren, or my children, our children lost their grandparents, their aunt, their uncle, and their cousins when my husband died. And it was so sad. And I share this story with you because I don't want this to happen to anyone else. You know, some people think an advance directive, oh, it's CPR. That's it. No, there's a lot more. It opens up conversations that can make an impact. Conversations that, had my husband had one of these, my children might know their grandparents. Now, my husband was a huge Harley guy, and I had to find an urn, and I could not get an urn in time. So I went to the Harley Davidson store that he spent way too much money at. And I said, look, can I have an urn? And they said, no, we don't have them. It'll take a couple of weeks to get from the company. I'm like, that won't do. They said, well, we have a Harley Davidson gas tank in the back, but it has dents in it. You can have it for free. And I'm like, I'll take it. My husband had lots of dents in him too. And so my oldest son built that basically structure, and his Harley, replica of his Harley, the miniature ones up front, and his tattoo my son made is there. And I got to tell you, I think my husband would be pleased. His mother, not so much, but it's okay in my book. So when people want to know when to complete it, and honestly, the best time is when you're healthy. You're not in a crisis situation. You know, it's not COVID. You're not in the hospital. You know, when you can have time to really sit down with your loved ones and talk about it. But I do say it's never too late. And this Chinese proverb, it's just beautiful. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So even if you're 92 years old and you haven't done it yet, it's okay. The fact that you're here, the fact that you are listening to this conversation is the first step. So now I'm going to turn to talking about how you go about completing your advance directive, or if you've already done it, you might want to refresh it. So basically, when you look at this, I don't know, it's like 13 or 14 pages. It basically breaks down to 3 parts. The first part is called Healthcare Power of Attorney. Basically, it's the person or the people that you want to speak for you. The second part, and this is the bulk of it, is what your wishes are at end of life, both medical and non-medical preferences. And then the very end of it is the organ donation component. So I'm going to just talk about each one of these. So the person or the people that you choose to be your healthcare agent, I know it sounds like such a strange your agent. I'm like, I call it your peeps, the people you love. They don't necessarily have to be a family member. There are some people I've spoken to, and they're like, my wife can't handle that. I don't want to put that pressure on her. I'm going to name the neighbor. I had one person who named the UPS man. I'm like, I really hope you knew the UPS man very well. um, but you want the person to be able to accept the role, to be able to talk to you about what you want, follow your decisions, even if they may not agree. And in the stressful time or a crisis, be able to make those decisions. Now, the second part of the advance directive, these are those end of life decisions. And a lot of us know, CPR, the ventilator, these are actually check boxes, and you check off if you do or you do not want them. So there's a list of them there that you can choose from. Now, CPR. This is eye-opening for many, many people. Before I started at Delaware Hospice, I thought basically everybody survived CPR because, like many non-clinical people, my knowledge comes from Grey's Anatomy and ER. That's where my medical knowledge comes from. So I was kind of curious, and I actually did research to find out, what are your chances of surviving CPR if you're on Grey's Anatomy or ER? Well, if you're on Grey's Anatomy, you have a 46% chance of surviving CPR. But hey, if you're on the ER cast, you have an even better chance. 68% of people who get CPR in the hospital survive. Now, in real life, it's very different. This was shocking to me. In real life, it's only 12%. I was floored. I had no idea. And this is in a hospital setting. I'm not talking about like Wawa, in the parking lot. I'm talking about in that setting in a hospital with trained professionals. And I'm not here to tell you yes or no CPR. I just want to make a point that if you're not sure of exactly what CPR is, you want to talk to your doctor or nurse practitioner and really learn and understand what it is. Because again, I think for many people like me that are non-clinical, this was really eye-opening. And besides, anytime I get to see a picture of McDreamy or McSteamy, I get excited. So now, I said the medical preferences for this part. There's also these non-medical preferences that you should think about. There's a section in the advance directive. It doesn't necessarily spell this out, but there's space that you can write what you want. And these are some things I'd like you to consider. Do you want to have music? If you're, at the end of your life, whether it, coherent or not, what type of personal care do you want? Maybe you're one of these people who carries like 4 chapsticks with you and has one everywhere, and you have to have chapstick on all the time. I know several people like that. One person who I met with, a beautiful woman, she told me to write down in her advance directive. I was helping her with it. I want my sheets untucked. She said, I was born of a mother of German descent, and she wrapped her feet as a baby in a papoose, like so tight that her little baby toes actually came over her 4th toe. And she said, when I went to bed, the sheets were almost military style, and I could never move my feet. And I want to make sure that at the end of my life, I can wiggle my toes. And I said, well, we'll make sure your sheets are untucked. We'll make it a priority. Another woman who talked about, she wanted to be cremated, and she wanted her ashes spread at the Cape May Lighthouse. And she told me the most beautiful story about why. And she said, please write down in my advance directive that my ashes should be spread at low tide, because at high tide, I'll come back on the sand, and I don't like the sand. I like the water. So again, just 2 little stories that always make me smile. But things to think about, things that are important to you. Again, what matters most to you? Another part that you can decide on is where you want to be at the end of your life. Do you want to be at home, in a hospital? And sometimes you may not have a choice, but you can say what your preference is. Or we're very lucky, working for Delaware Hospice, we actually have a hospice center. It's the only freestanding center. It's in Milford, Delaware. This is a picture of it on the right side. And we have these individual suites, and you can see the French doors open up into the patio. Every single one of the rooms does. There's a place there, if you have someone they want to stay overnight, your own shower, you can even take a wheelchair right into the shower. Everything is beautiful. It's equipped. It doesn't look like a hospital. But it's a place where you can go and feel like you're at home if you need extra care. The third part is about organ donation in the advance directive, and you have some options here. I never knew about this. You can choose to donate your entire body. You can choose to donate to specific organs or tissues. These are all the check boxes from the advance directive that you check off. Maybe there is a particular doctor you want notified and you want them to have the organs, or perhaps maybe you know someone in the family that had a kidney and you want your kidney sent to a particular storage bank. And then you have the option, do you want transplantation, research, or medical education? So I'll give you a couple little examples here. So my father wanted to have his brain donated to science. Again, he had cancer 3 times. So that was something we knew in particular. That was for research, medical education. He wanted to be able to help others. He didn't care what we did with the rest. My husband, he said, well, they can have anything, if there's anything for the taking, except for his corneas. Now, there's also options where in Delaware, the University of Delaware has a PT program where you can donate your body to science. So, you see the movies where they have the residents and they have the cadavers. They have to, so here we go. All right, hopefully she runs downstairs. I knew it was coming. But that is a possibility where you can donate your body. University of Delaware will actually use the body for about a year or 2. Hi, honey, mommy's on a Zoom call, okay? Be with you in a few minutes. And then at the end of that course, they actually will cremate the body, and then they will send the cremains back to you. So that is an option for many people, and it is no charge. For some families, that's very important to them. Now, my husband, this was taken actually a month before my husband died. We never went on a honeymoon until our 9th wedding anniversary. And it just so happened he died the next month, but I love this picture of him. And I'm proud to say that he is a gift of life donor, and he has actually helped over 68 people through the gift of life. 68 people. What a legacy. Now, they found him in the bathroom and had to break the door down. So I didn't think they could even use his body. However, they were able to use tissue and skin and bone. So he's helped burn victims. A pregnant woman has his heart valves. And so it's very interesting to know what can actually be utilized. Now, sharing your wishes with loved ones. And just one moment, Allison, your grandmother is at the school looking for you. Can you please text her?
No, she's not.
Oh, she's not?
No.
Is your brother home?
My little brother?
Yes.
He's been home.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you.
He's literally sitting downstairs.
Okay, thanks. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I apologize, and that's on the recording too. I just had to make sure kids were okay. All right, so sharing your wishes with loved ones. Let's go to the next slide here. So one of the things I absolutely love about this is that all these people are happy. They're smiling. When it comes to sharing your wishes with loved ones, it doesn't have to be scary. It's going to be a little nerve-wracking at first, maybe a little anxious, but it can be done in a beautiful way. So I kind of break it down, the building blocks. Who do you want to talk to? When is a good time? Where do you want to talk? And what are you going to say? Because for some people, it's very overwhelming. So I just kind of break it down into these parts. So here's a listing of who you may want to talk to. So, obviously close family and friends. You may want your faith leader to know. For many people, that's extremely important. Your doctor, obviously. Some people like their financial planner to know because they like everything to kind of be together, doing your will and your advance directive. And this is almost the hardest part. When's a good time to talk? So here's some options. Some people think, maybe a holiday when the family is together, or a Sunday dinner. When I asked my mom this, she said, before I get cancer again. I was like, wow, okay. But we did it. We had that conversation. And even think about where you want to do this. And your family or your friends best. For some, it's around the kitchen table. That's where you feel the most comfortable. Maybe you need to do this in a public place because you're not sure quite how it's going to go. It might be a restaurant, at the park, on a walk. I know in my family growing up, anytime my parents had any news to deliver that wasn't great, it was in the car because we were locked in and they didn't have to look at us. So again, I'll throw that one out there for you. And what do you want to say? Again, you can break it down into these 3 easy parts. You're the person I've chosen. Here's what I want and what I don't want. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my thoughts with organ donation. Now, when I first did this presentation, it was very cold and in the winter. So that's why you get the snowman picture, but how to break the ice. And I love this because remember earlier I said, doing this is a gift. It's a gift to your loved one, so they don't have the burden of guessing what you want. So it's this gift you're giving. And here are some simple ways, some simple things that you can share with them. Hey, I just heard this talk with the cancer support community, and it got me thinking, can we talk? I have some thoughts. Or even though I'm okay right now, I'm worried what the future has. Can we talk? I was just thinking about what happened to Aunt Betty, and I realized that. And did you know that such and such was an organ donor, helped save the lives of 6 people? So again, there are just a couple of options, so that it kind of takes the pressure off of how do you start that conversation, because we know in our society, talking about death is very taboo. So some things to remember about having these conversations. Plant the seed. You don't have to do this all at one time. It's just you kind of dripping it a little bit, and be patient, because for some people in your family, they're going to say, nope, can't do it. Mom, not doing it. Nothing's going to ever happen to you. And I've been there. And just, just be patient. It's going to be okay. And to make time to have more of these conversations. I mean, just a couple months ago now, my mom joined in on one of my presentations because I wasn't sure how many people were going to be there and I needed feedback. And I learned something new. I learned that my mother does not want to have any women singing at church on the altar. She said, I want baritone. I'm like, okay, I'll look for men that are baritone. I had no idea, but I'm still learning things to this day. So the wrap up and some resources. This is an excellent website. It's called mydirectives.com. And if you like to go online and do things online, it's a great way to make your medical wishes known. And you know what? I just realized something. It might be .org. I'm not sure. It's either .com or .org. So you might have to try both. But it's totally free. It's really easy to go in and create your advance directive, and you can go in and update it. I actually have an app on my phone that I went in and I had done my advance directive before for Delaware, but I just uploaded it. But it's really nice because it helps you kind of get started. And it gives you some examples that you can kind of click on, like the little plus sign. You can put things in your words, or you can choose other words, that they have. And you have this unique option that if you want to do a video, and I was like, a video. And then someone had told me that there was this a grandmother, and she knew what she wanted and nobody else would listen to her. And she did a video and she said, why? And she talked about her life and what she had been through and that she was tired. I think the words were, my skin hurts. And after her family saw this video, they got it. They wanted her to live forever. And she was saying, I will live with you forever, but it is my time to go. So this video option I thought was very beautiful. And again, it's really easy to update. So in my advanced directive that I've done online, there are certain poems and songs that I want played and read at my service. And I heard a song on the radio and I'm like, I want that song. That song's got to be at my funeral. And so I just tapped on my icon on my phone. I brought up my advanced directive and I stuck it in there. So it's really easy. And you can send this to your doctor. When I named my oldest son as my healthcare agent, as soon as I did it, I emailed him. Of course, I got a call. Oh my God, what's wrong? Are you dying? I'm like, no. What do I do for a living? He's like, oh yeah, okay, got it. But it's neat that you can do that and they can sign it right then and there, an electronic signature. And then you can even print out this little wallet card with a barcode. So if you, or a QR code. So if you go to the hospital, you know how they always say, do you have an advanced directive? You can say, I do actually. And here you can scan it by clicking on this barcode, and then you can give them the special password. So again, it's really easy to do it that way. And I will send out this presentation. So you have that with my contact information. If you have any questions, you can feel free to call me. With Delaware Hospice, we're a nonprofit, and Honoring Choices as part of Delaware Hospice is a nonprofit. So I do these presentations. I meet with people one-on-one, totally free. It's just a service that we provide. And I meet with families very often, and we go through advanced directives, and I can kind of help get those conversations started. And I wanted to share these words from Atul Gawande, one of my favorite authors. You may not control life circumstances, but getting to be the author of your life means getting control what you do with them. And this. At the end of life, what really matters is not what we bought, but what we built, not what we shared, not our competence, but our character, not our success, but our significance. Live a life of matter, live a life, that matters, live a life of love. So I will stop sharing, and hopefully my screen isn't going to be all wacky. All right, there we go.
Well,
And
Nicole, while people are thinking if they have any questions, I want to let you know someone did confirm that mydirectives.com is correct. We also had a question in the chat, which I
Great,
think is
thank
only going
you.
to me. I apologize. It says, can cancer patients be organ donors, especially if you have metastatic disease?
That is a great question. I can find out because I'm an ambassador with Gift of Life. All right, cancer. I want to say it's possible. It may not be all the organs, but many times, there goes my camera again, many times skin or bone, corneas, things like that. But I will definitely reach out to my contact at Gift of Life, and I can find out.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll open it up if there's any other questions. And I will, like I said, send out the recording. I'll send out the presentation. We'll also send the link to my directives. We'll include it all in one email, and Nicole's contact information with that too.
Oh, I did get a question. Could you clarify the advanced directive and how it's different from something like the 5 wishes that Christiana Hospital gives you when you go there? Yeah, Christiana Hospital loves the 5 wishes. It's just another version of like an advanced directive. Um, the one that I shared on the screen, that's the one that has been developed for the state. But anything that you use, whether it's 5 wishes, mydirectives.com, you can utilize those. The fact that you just have a document that says what you want. One thing that I just struck in my head, you don't have to have this notarized in the state of Delaware. And you don't need a lawyer. Sometimes lawyers will bundle this in a package with your estate, with your will. But the advanced directive, you can actually, print it out online. Like I said, go to my directives. You can do it however you want to. So that's important to know because that scares a lot of people. But the 5 wishes document's really nice. It's a very like easy to read and understand document.
So someone's asking, are there local groups to help people with planning, especially if they do not have a partner or family? So you mentioned you would help, Nicole.
Yeah.
Any other resources?
A lot of hospices and anyone that has a palliative program, they can sit down and do this with you, like social workers. Your primary care physician, you actually can go in during your annual checkup and talk to your doctor. And it's, I say it's billable, but they get paid for it. Elder care lawyers or elder law attorneys, I know they often will help people. And I just saw something in the chat. Oh, my friend Kate just messaged me. She said funeral homes often do this too. I think it's something that's becoming more and more prevalent. I actually listened to a group not too long ago. It was the Delaware Quality of Life Coalition, and they did one specifically for the LGBTQ community. There was someone that spoke there. And there's even an advanced directive online. I can't remember what state. I want to say it's maybe Pacific Northwest region, but they create it, and I love it. They create an advanced directive for people in the LGBT community. Many, well, I shouldn't say many, I should say some people may not have shared with close family or friends certain things. They may not want certain people to see their body. So, it really took a lot into account. I thought it was wonderful. So I think we're going to see and hear a lot more of this in the coming years. Any other questions? Well, I feel terrible that I couldn't show my face because, as you can tell from my voice, I'm a very animated person. I do like to use my hands and expressions when I speak. What time is it here? I do have, well, actually, let me ask, is there anything going on after this? Or is it when I'm done, it's done?
When you're done, we're done, and we
Okay.
have an hour blocked out, so you have a little extra time.
Time? Okay. Well, if you want to stay, I have a very funny story. I really, really hate why my computer is doing this. Okay. So I will start by saying that I really don't want to offend anyone. If there's children in the room, and I'm just going to pretend that they might be, so I'm going to change my language a little bit. So you're probably like, oh, dear Lord, what is this girl going to talk about? So it has to deal with organ donation. So I shared with you about learned my husband died at the hospital. And they told me that someone from Gift of Life would be calling me probably within like 2-3 hours to talk about organ donation, since my husband was an organ donor. And it, they put his name in the system and it comes up he was an organ donor. So I said, fine, whatever, because I had to talk to the police and the coroner and things. And I was on my way home from Westchester, coming to Wilmington, driving down 202. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I tell my kids Daddy's never coming home? Because at the time they were in kindergarten, second grade, and a freshman in high school. And I got this call from this woman at Gift of Life, and she said she had some questions. So we went over some of the particulars just about my husband, and she asked if I knew he was an organ donor. I said, yes, we had talked about that. And I said, I know he doesn't want his corneas given. She's like, okay, and assured me, that's fine. We'll make sure that his corneas are intact. And after the organ donation, they'll have his body cremated and then given to the funeral home, and I'll get it. She said, okay, well, we have a couple of questions and they might be uncomfortable. Okay. And, I'm literally like in a fog right now. And, but I remember these questions so clearly. Well, she asked if he had been out of the country. I said, no. She asked if he had, I'll use the word relations with men. I said, no. And she said, now this next question is, I'm sorry. The next question is, did he have relations with animals? Like, oh dear God, I hope not. And then she said, now this next question is very difficult for a young widow. Well, two thoughts came to mind. One is I'm a young widow at 40, I was 42, and I'm a widow. And the other one was, you just asked me if my husband had relations with animals. What on earth could you possibly ask me that's worse than that? Honestly. She said, well, at Gift of Life, we do life-saving techniques, but we also do life-enhancing. I'm like, what on earth are you going to enhance with my husband? And she said, well, we can take skin from his back and use it for breast cancer or for breast reconstruction. I paused. I smiled and I said, heck yeah, he'd love to be on a boob. Well, I remember like laughing and crying at the same time because, and I said out loud, oh my God, I just laughed. My husband just died. And she said, honey, it's okay. He wants to look down from you from heaven and see you smile. Now, I've told that story so many times. I've had his friends tell their wives, we're doing a will now. What's that paper we need to fill out? I want to be an organ donor, and that's what I want. A couple of months ago, I gave a speech with Gift of Life, and the woman who spoke had breast construction done after having cancer. And it was right around the time my husband died. So I wonder if it might have been her, but I'll never know. But anyway, that's just, it's a funny story that I love to share, because death is scary. But I think, in looking at death and talking about it, it makes us come closer to life and really living. So again,
Thank
hope
you,
I didn't
Nicole. And
offend anyone.
I love that we can use laughter to help us through those difficult things too. That's great.
I know that's how I've survived.
Hey, Nicole.
Yes, Anne?
I had a question about, like on my license on Delaware, it says I'm an organ donor. So then
Right.
with the Gift of Life, does that also a separate registering, or how does that, or does
No.
like your organ? Okay. So it's all connected.
Yeah, it's all together. There are a couple organizations like Gift of Life throughout the country, and Gift of Life out of Philadelphia, they deal with Delaware. So the like Christiana, they have a team. So when someone does die, they will talk to the family, and then Gift of Life is the organization that generally is coming in, unless of course you picked, say, University of Delaware or a particular kidney foundation. But no, there's no need to do registering anywhere else. You're good.
Thank you.
And they are amazing, amazing people.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? As you can tell, I answer anything. I'm very transparent. Well, thank you so much. Again, my apologies for the interruptions with dogs, children, and my camera. Yeah, if I can be of any help in the future, please just reach out. We're here to help.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
My name is Carl, and I'm now living in Pennsylvania. So where would I go to get a form for Pennsylvania, or if assuming the form for Delaware wouldn't work?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Carl. Each state is different. So what I can do is when I email this out, I can provide the link for the Pennsylvania form as well. And if for some reason you don't get that, you can literally Google Advanced Directive, Pennsylvania.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's I appreciate that, and I'm
Of course.
thankful for all that you do.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Like I said, I'm in the job of my dreams in a weird way because my husband died. I landed this job, but it's things come full circle sometimes, even when we don't expect it.
Well, keep up the good
Excellent.
work.
I will. Thank you. And thank you for
Sure.
coming, Carl.
Yeah, that was a good question, because I was going to just mention that we do have some people outside of Delaware, and just to be, it's important to have it for the state that you live in.
Yeah. And if you go to that My Directive site online too, it's pretty much like a universal one. I mean, I would like one day that it is all universal, but you know how things work in our country. Sometimes we can't all come together.
Yeah. Great.
You'll send me
right,
the
I'm
link.
gonna
you
stop.
said?
Yes, I will.
Oh, perfect,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.